I'm Rachel.
Deckard.
Did you ever have any idea you would end up after Stripes in a futuristic world of California after the year 2000?
Imagine being so determined to land a role that you march straight into the Warner Brothers lot wearing a hand-stitched Catwoman costume, uninvited, unannounced, and fully convinced you can change your destiny. That was Sean Young. Some people called it fearless, others swore it was pure madness, but everyone agreed on one thing. By the early 90s, the woman Hollywood once praised as its next breakout star had suddenly become an easy target for late-night jokes and tabloid headlines. This was the same actress who lit up the screen in Blade Runner, the same woman who matched Kevin Costner's intensity in No Way Out. She was positioned to dominate Hollywood, and then, almost overnight, everything slipped through her fingers. Was it a string of bad decisions? Hidden politics behind studio doors, or something far more personal? Whatever the truth was, Sean Young's fall from grace came faster and hit harder than anyone imagined, and the industry never really welcomed her back. So what actually went wrong? To understand the collapse, you have to go back to where her story began. Born Mary Sean Young on November 20th, 1959 in Louisville, Kentucky, she grew up surrounded by creativity. Her father produced TV and worked as a journalist, while her mother built a career as a screenwriter and public relations executive. It wasn't a glamorous Hollywood childhood, but storytelling was woven into her world from the very beginning. As a young girl, she spent her teenage years training at the Interlochen Arts Academy in Michigan, focusing completely on classical ballet. At that time, her world revolved around timing, discipline, and movement, not dreams of Hollywood fame. Her future looked like it would unfold on a stage, not in front of a camera. After finishing high school, she joined the School of American Ballet in New York, but eventually the urge to act grew too strong to push aside. To make money, she began modeling, and that simple decision opened a new door. Before long, she was auditioning for roles. There was something about her, more than her looks. She had a spark, a confidence that felt sharp and unpredictable. In 1980, she made her movie debut in Jane Austen in Manhattan. It wasn't a huge film, but it placed her exactly where she needed to be. Then, just 1 year later, everything shifted. She was given a small role in a hit comedy that turned heads her way. Her first real step into the major leagues came with the 1981 film Stripes. It was one of those wild, chaotic early 80s comedies, loud, messy, and full of charm. Bill Murray led the cast, joined by Harold Ramis, John Candy, Warren Oates, Judge Reinhold, and even a very young John Larroquette being his usual mischievous self. The movie was created by people who knew how to balance silly humor with total madness, and audiences loved it. She appeared as MP Louise Cooper, playing opposite PJ Soles, who was the film's other love interest. Her role was small, but she held her ground in a movie dominated by loud, energetic men. She carried a gentle calmness on screen that contrasted beautifully with the chaos around her. Her chemistry with Harold Ramis was easy to see. Even in her brief scenes, you could sense something sharper behind her eyes, as if she was watching, learning, and figuring out how the industry worked. She wasn't just another pretty face filling space in the background. Despite the quick pace and the occasional messiness of filming, she fit right in. She wasn't the star, not yet, but she was growing and people were starting to notice. The movie became a box office success, earning more than $85 million on a simple $10 million budget. Critics largely enjoyed it too. Roger Ebert called it a ragged but appealing comedy and praised Murray's signature deadpan humor. The film wasn't flawless, but it didn't need to be. Stripes found its audience quickly, and over the years it became a classic, and in the middle of all those future comedy legends, she managed to make her presence known with only a few minutes of screen time. That alone is an achievement. Looking back, the film wasn't just a big moment for the men in the cast, it marked the beginning of something for Sean Young as well. But if Stripes opened a door, Blade Runner blew it off its hinges. In 1982, she starred beside Harrison Ford in Ridley Scott's groundbreaking sci-fi noir, a film that didn't just change the genre, it changed its entire look. And honestly, I have to admit, it's one of my favorite films ever made. It's the kind of movie that nearly wore out the VHS tape in my house. Everything about it, the Vangelis score, the lighting, the massive futuristic world, the sound, felt hypnotic, and the performances, nearly unstoppable. So when Sean Young suddenly appeared in that film after Stripes, it made me stop and take notice. She was nothing like the woman from the comedy. The relaxed, warm energy was gone. Instead, she played Rachel with restraint, carefulness, and mystery. She felt like someone walking across a wire stretched between two versions of herself. She appeared calm on the outside, but there was always a softness beneath her expression, like something fragile waiting to show. Her performance wasn't loud or dramatic. It was quiet, controlled, and incredibly deliberate. That was the magic of it. Sean Young didn't play Rachel like a classic Hollywood star. She played her like someone trying to hold on to herself piece by piece. Even though Blade Runner didn't explode at the box office at first, and critics were split, many reviewers noticed her work. And as the film grew into a cult legend and one of the greatest sci-fi movies ever made, her role grew with it. But behind the camera, things weren't nearly as glamorous. People on set whispered about tension between Sean Young and Harrison Ford. Some even said the spark viewers saw on screen disappeared the moment the camera stopped rolling. And even though Ridley Scott openly praised her striking look and powerful presence, rumors still spread that she was difficult to work with. It's tough to know what was real and what was Hollywood gossip, but this moment marked the beginning of a reputation that would follow Sean Young for years. After Blade Runner, you'd expect her career to explode, and technically it did. By 1984, she was part of another huge sci-fi project, this time directed by David Lynch. The movie was Dune, adapted from Frank Herbert's famously complex novel. Everything about it looked like a career-changing opportunity, a giant budget, a massive cast, and a built-in fan base that adored the source material. Sean played Chani, the desert warrior who becomes the love interest of Paul Atreides, played by a young Kyle MacLachlan making his film debut. Her role mattered in the book, but the movie trimmed her scenes so much that she became more of a background figure than a fully realized character. And I'll admit, this film has a special place in my heart. It came from that magical early 80s period when studios took big swings with sci-fi. The world building was wild, the tone was strange, the music was beautiful, and Dune was right at the center of that creative storm. Sean didn't get much screen time, but she still left her mark. The problem was simple. Dune just didn't work. The production was a mess, the story was chopped to pieces in the editing room, and the final movie felt like a bunch of incredible ideas glued together at the last minute. Critics tore into it, calling it bloated, confusing, and almost impossible to follow. Lynch walked away from it, the studio lost money, sci-fi fans were split in half. And once again, Sean Young found herself in another ambitious project that stalled instead of soaring. Two major sci-fi films back to back, and both stumbled at the box office, even if they later became classics.
But then everything shifted. She stepped away from space politics and giant sandworms into something far more grounded, a sharp political thriller, a leading role, and a chance to show Hollywood a side of her they hadn't seen. In 1987, Sean Young finally got a role that pulled her out of the shadows. No futuristic worlds, no special effects, just a tight, high-pressure thriller with real emotional weight. No Way Out. She starred alongside Kevin Costner, who was right on the edge of becoming one of the biggest stars in Hollywood. Sean played Susan Atwell, a woman tangled in a dangerous love triangle involving a powerful government official and a Navy officer. It was the type of part that could have easily become a tired cliché, just another femme fatale. But Sean refused to let that happen. She brought depth, she brought intensity, she brought vulnerability and danger, confidence and chaos, sometimes in the very same moment. Her chemistry with Costner was undeniable, and for once, Hollywood let her show everything she was capable of. Critics took notice. The New York Times called her performance bold, sexy, and electrifying, and audiences agreed. After No Way Out hit big at the box office, Sean Young's face was suddenly everywhere again. For a moment, it really seemed like she was finally stepping into that next level of leading actresses. When you look back at the early part of her career, you can't help but think she had an incredible agent. Stripes, Blade Runner, Dune, No Way Out, that kind of lineup would make anyone look unstoppable. From the outside, it looked like Sean Young had officially made it, but Hollywood has a strange way of turning down your spotlight just when you start shining the brightest. And behind closed doors, quiet whispers were already beginning. She even made a quick appearance in Wall Street. Blink once and you'd miss her, but it still mattered. This was an Oliver Stone film right after Platoon, a director riding a tidal wave of awards and attention. The movie was filled with big-name stars, and the fact that Young landed even a small role showed just how in demand she was during that late 80s run. After No Way Out, it looked like the door to huge opportunities was finally open. Major franchises, major roles. Sean had everything lined up. One of the earliest was Batman in 1989. Most reports say she had already been cast as Vicky Vale and had gone through weeks of read-throughs and rehearsals. Then everything changed in one moment. During a horseback riding session in pre-production, she fell and injured herself. Some say it was her arm, others say it was her collarbone. Whatever the truth, the injury got her replaced. Kim Basinger stepped in, and Sean Young's chance at a massive blockbuster quietly slipped away. But her story with Gotham wasn't over yet. When Batman Returns came around, she set her sights on Catwoman. According to interviews and countless reports, she even showed up at the Warner Brothers lot wearing a handmade Catwoman costume, hoping to talk to Tim Burton or anyone involved in casting. Some stories claim she tried to walk into production offices uninvited. Others say she startled executives who had no idea she was coming. And whether or not Tim Burton really hid under a desk, as the rumors insist, the moment quickly turned into Hollywood legend. But for Sean Young, it wasn't a joke. It was a serious attempt to fight for a role she believed she could bring to life. Most actors would have played it safe, let their agent handle the calls, send another headshot, hope for the best. She took the bold route. She didn't get the part. Kim Basinger did, and delivered one of the most unforgettable performances of that decade. But instead of fading away, Sean Young found herself pushed into a different category. The Catwoman incident became something people brought up before they even mentioned her acting. Conversation shifted from her talent to her behavior. And that's when the difficult label really started to attach itself to her name. Maybe it wasn't true. Maybe it was exaggerated. But in 90s Hollywood, one story could change your entire future. Then came Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, in 1994, a massive hit with Jim Carrey at the height of his wild, unpredictable comedy style. Sean Young played Louis Einhorn, a character who, in the film's big twist, is revealed to be a man in disguise. People still argue about the way that film handled her role. Some say it hasn't aged well at all. Others, like me, still find it funny in its own messy way. The movie went for loud, crude jokes, but instead of letting Sean Young be part of the comedy, she became the punchline. Yes, the film made money, but her career didn't rise with it. If anything, it slipped even further. And while all this was happening, the press kept returning to the same old story. The Catwoman costume incident, the unstable label, those harsh comments from directors and producers who claimed she was difficult. Sometimes the criticism was vague. Sometimes it was unnecessarily cruel. Sean Young once admitted, "Back then, I didn't have any real self-preservation skills. I didn't know how to censor myself at all." And that honesty, combined with the lack of filters, ended up costing her a big time. Her career in the 2000s was far quieter. She landed roles here and there, The Young and the Restless, a quick spot on Reno 911, and blink and you'll miss them appearances in quirky indie films and low-budget thrillers. Her face had changed a bit with time, like anyone would, but that strange electric spark she carried, it was still visible. Then in 2011, she showed up on Celebrity Rehab with Dr. Drew, and honestly, it was tough to watch. The show often painted her as detached from reality, but when you looked past the dramatic editing, you could see a woman fighting to pull herself back together, someone trying to speak her truth after an industry had used her and tossed her aside. In Jugface in 2013, she delivered a small but chilling performance. There was no major comeback campaign, no big media moment celebrating her return, but there was steady, honest work. And for someone who'd been turned into a Hollywood cautionary tale, that meant something. When you hear her in interviews now, there's a calmness in her voice. She sounds like someone who survived the chaos, collected a few scars, and still kept her sense of humor intact. We remember her iconic roles, Rachel in Blade Runner, Charney, June, Susan in No Way Out. But we also remember the questions. What if she'd played Catwoman? What if Hollywood had given her more chances to grow? Today, Sean Young lives much more quietly. She's married, she's a mother, and she still shows up in indie films from time to time. Her journey has been wild, messy, unpredictable, and not always fair, but it has never been dull. What a life. What a story. And honestly, I hope she's finally found peace far from the noise, the headlines, and the old whispers.